Chapter 6. All Hallows' Eve. All Souls' Day, Margaret dressed as a 16th century witch, explained to them over a cup of hot cider at the school's Halloween party. Her long green witch's nose, complete with hairs growing out of a mole on the end of it, was making it difficult for her to navigate the cup of cider to her mouth. "I thought it was called the Day of the Dead?" asked Rodrigo Garcia, whose blackened face disappeared within the heavy woolen hood of his robe. Only his eyes could be made out due to the glowing yellow contact lens he was wearing. He leaned on his 6-foot-long sickle that was part of his costume. Yes, in Latin cultures, the Day of the Dead is somewhat similar to All Souls' Day, or as we now say Halloween or All Hallows' Eve. Margaret handed her wood and straw broomstick for Nathaniel to hold for her. "Thank you, Nathan." She used her now free hand to bend her long witch's nose to finally be able to drink from her cup. "No problem." He slung his replica flintlock over his blue Revolutionary War colonial uniform in order to take hold of Margaret's broom. "Have you seen Michelle? She didn't come with you?" Margaret seemed surprised as she held her nose to finish her cider. "No. She said she wanted to surprise me with her costume." "Really?" Margaret took back her broom and looked around the school gym, filled with costume students and Halloween decorations. "I wonder what she is coming as." Suddenly, the lights in the gym went out. The two main doors swung open with a powerful burst of wind, slamming loudly against the walls. Everyone at the party went silent and turned their attention to the doorway. Standing there silently was the silhouette of a girl in an early 19th century white dress. Her face was pale, framed by long, straight black hair. Around her neck was a twisted, thick, natural fiber rope that reached up into the air behind and above her. "It's her." Many in the room screamed, and some girls began to cry in complete horror. The lights just as suddenly came back on, and everyone could clearly see that it was not her, but Michelle. Her face was painted white with her eyes in blackened circles. "It's only me." Michelle tried to calm down the party. Margaret and Nathaniel approached her, but one of the teachers had reached her first. "That was not funny, young lady." "Miss," Crabtree scolded Michelle, "you nearly gave every adult in the gymnasium a heart attack." "I nearly peed myself." Margaret responded. Noticing a puddle at Fawn's feet, Nathaniel added, "I think some did, but I have to admit, great costume and entrance. How did you synchronize the lights going out and both doors swinging open like that?" "I didn't." Michelle responded. "Where did you get the dress?" Curiously, Michelle looked at Nathaniel. "I thought it was from you. I found it wrapped in plain brown paper in front of my door." "It's not from me. I have never seen it before." Margaret was fascinated with the rope around her neck that on its own climbed up in the air. "How did you get the rope to stand straight up like that?" "My stepdad made it for me. The rope is twisted around a wire. He said it's an old trick of Indian rope climbers." "Well, I am not so sure this is an appropriate costume, young lady." Miss Crabtree interrupted their conversation. Principal Greenberg walked up to them. "Lighten up, Miss Crabtree. It's a Halloween party. Are you suggesting it is too soon for a costume based on her? Especially since it was Michelle and Nathaniel that finally put to rest the ghost stories surrounding her." He turned to Michelle. "Although, young lady, perhaps your entrance was a bit too dramatic." "Principal Greenberg, I had nothing to do with the doors swinging open like that and the lights going out." Michelle responded. "Perhaps it was her," suggested Margaret, causing the others to all look at Margaret in disbelief. "Really now, Miss Reed," commented Principal Greenberg. "Just saying," defended Margaret. "You kids should return to the party and no more theatrics." Nathaniel led Michelle to the food and drink table with Margaret in tow. "You say you just found this dress outside your bedroom door. It must have been your mom or stepdad that gave you the dress." "No, not outside my bedroom door. Outside our apartment door. That is why I thought it was from you," Michelle clarified as Nathaniel poured her and Margaret cups of cider. "Well, if it wasn't your parents and it wasn't Nathaniel, who would have given you the dress and know your size?" Margaret questioned. "The dress looks like it was tailor-made for you." "Yes, it does." Michelle used her one free hand to stroke the very graceful and feminine garment. "It is very comfortable. I've never worn a dress before. It even came with a petticoat." "What's a petticoat?" asked Nathaniel, filling his own cup of cider. Michelle slightly lifted the hem of the long dress that nearly touched the floor, revealing the pink ruffles of fabric under her dress. "It is like a second skirt you wear under the dress. It helps give the dress its bell-shaped form and helps keep you warm." Her lifting the long skirt also revealed that she was wearing very old-fashioned lace boots. The boots were also in the package. "They fit me like a glove." "That is really strange," responded Nathaniel. "It must be your mom that left you the outfit. Who else would know your sizes so well?" "My mother insists it was not her." Billy Mania, dressed as an 18th century garb and holding Venetian-style masquerade mask on a stick, sheathed around his waist was a blunted fencing foil. His hair was pulled back and tied into a ponytail. Billy Mania was considered the coolest kid in the 8th grade. He was only 13, but was rumored to have already needed to shave at least once a week. He had the strongest jawline Nathaniel had ever seen on anyone outside of a comic book. Fawn, dressed as a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader, tossed her long golden hair to the side and smiled at Billy. "Hello, Billy." "Who are you supposed to be?" Nathaniel asked Billy as Fawn, Missy, Margaret, and Michelle seemed to be entranced by Billy joining their small circle. "Casanova," he replied to Nathaniel, then, turning to face and look at Michelle through the 2 holes of his masquerade mask. His eyes were as deep brown as her eyes were deep blue. "Do you like it?" With his free hand, he took Michelle's hand, and moving his mask away from his face, he kissed the back of her hand. Okay, enough of that, Casanova." Miss Crabtree interrupted. "This is not the 18th century. Nowadays, for that you can get expelled for sexual harassment." "My apologies." Billy Mania, staying in character, gracefully bowed before Michelle as he released her hand. "It's okay, Miss Crabtree. I kind of liked it." Michelle blushed as she tenderly retrieved her hand. Nathaniel also turned a bit red, but it was not from being embarrassed. "I have to say, I love your costume, Michelle." Billy, out of character, said to her, "You really gave this place a scare." "I didn't mean to scare everyone so much." She answered, "Just thought it was a timely costume, especially when I received this dress at my doorstep." "Well, you look really scary and beautiful, too." Billy responded, "Thank you for noticing." Michelle gave a questioning glance at Nathaniel. "I think you look beautiful no matter what you wear." Nathaniel answered in his defense. Michelle smiled, "Thank you, Nathan." Nathaniel, seeing that Margaret was feeling, ignored mention to her. "Margaret, you too look beautiful tonight, under all that ugly witch makeup." Margaret and the others laughed at Nathaniel's odd compliment to Margaret. "Thank you, Nathan. You are a real Casanova. You know how to make all the girls feel good about themselves." Margaret disapprovingly glanced at Billy. Billy seemed set back a little with Margaret's compliment to Nathaniel, noticing it was also a clear backhanded insult to him. Billy quickly regained his composure from a slight. "Well, I and some of the other guys are going to go trick-or-treating Halloween night. I want to know if you would like to join us," he asked Michelle. "We would love to go." Michelle answered, including Nathaniel, Margaret, and Rodrigo, ignoring that he was clearly only asking her. Yeah, sure, you're all welcome to join us." Billy, feeling cornered, extended his offer to the other 3 in the circle. "Well, I should get back to my friends. I'll talk to you later." Once Billy was out of earshot, Nathaniel commented, "Yeah, go back to your real friends." Margaret and Rodrigo laughed. "Why did you agree to go trick-or-treating with him?" asked Margaret. "Why not?" Michelle answered. Never hurts to have more friends. With friends like Billy Mania, who needs enemies? Rodrigo answered. Oh, he is not so bad. Michelle defended him. To you he is not, because he's attracted to you. Margaret responded. Everyone knows that Nathaniel is attracted to you too, but he never makes me feel like an unperson. Nathaniel turned a bit red from Margaret's comment. Michelle, quite pleased, turned to Nathaniel. Is that true? Are you attracted to me, Nathan? She smiled broadly. You have to be blind not to see it, answered Rodrigo for Nathaniel. Actually, a blind person could sense it. You can hear how his voice softens when he talks to you, added Margaret. If you were not such a nice person, I would hate you, Michelle. I wish Nathan would talk to me the way he talks to you. I am not nice to you, Nathaniel asked Margaret, avoiding Michelle's question. Yes, Nathaniel, you are. That is why I envy Michelle. I do not envy her for Billy Mania being interested in her. You didn't answer me, Nathan. Michelle was not going to allow him to avoid the question. Is what Margaret's saying true? Before Nathaniel could answer, he was interrupted by Principal Greenberg, standing on a small platform with a microphone. Can I have everyone's attention? The party conversation settled down, and all the students and teachers turned their attention to Mr. Greenberg. I am happy to say, I feel this is the best Halloween party we have ever had here at Thomas Paine Middle School. Your costumes have been amazing, and it is clear a lot of attention and work went into them. So, it was very difficult to choose the best costumes this year. Due to so many historical themes this year, we decided to add a second category for costumes. Best period costumes, along with our usual best costume that makes a topical statement, scariest costume, and overall best costume. The room became even more silent as Principal Greenberg was handed an envelope that contained the names of this year's winners. I am happy to announce that along with our trophies, we have gift certificates for our winners to the best #1 Chinese restaurant, our local family Chinese restaurant. For our best costume winner, in addition to the certificate for one to the best #1 Chinese restaurant, they will also receive a $50 gift certificate to our very own local book and coffee shop, the Gutenberg Hangout. Good luck to everyone. Mr. Greenberg seemed oddly excited and nervous as he tore open the sealed envelope. I think you're going to win, Nathaniel said to Michelle. If I do, will you go with me? Nathaniel was surprised by her question. Was she asking him on a date? The winner for best topical outfit is Walter Johnson and Henry Lee. Walter Johnson and Henry Lee screamed and hugged each other before running up to the stage to collect their small trophies and gift certificates. Walter, a tall young black American, was dressed as Dennis Rodman with pink hair, piercings, basketball jersey and shorts, and holding a basketball. Henry, who happened to be of South Korean descent, was wearing a mouse suit and a North Korean flag pin on his lapel. He even had his hair buzz cut, like Kim Jong-un's. Once on stage, they continued to jump up and down and hug each other. Everyone in the gymnasium clapped for them. Now for the scariest costume. Principal Greenberg continued, Our winner is Margaret Reed. Margaret's mouth dropped in disbelief. Nathaniel congratulated her. Margaret, you won. Good for you. Michelle gave her a hug. I won. It finally hit Margaret. I never won anything before. Go, Margaret. Get your trophy and gift certificate. Rodrigo encouraged her. Margaret straddled her broomstick and ran up the stage, cackling like a witch. In character, she snatched the trophy from Principal Greenberg's hand. Caressing the trophy like a baby, she called it, My Pretty, for everyone to hear. The room broke out in laughter. Congratulations, Miss Reed. Principal Greenberg continued, for Best Historical Costume, Billy Mania. Very much in character, Billy Mania suavely walked up to the stage to receive his trophy. To all the attractive female students and teachers, he blew them kisses, smiled with his pearl-white teeth, and with great charm winked at his admirers. Some of the girls he did wink at giggled in delight for his attention. Billy, after receiving his certificate and trophy, took hold of Principal Greenberg's microphone. "I would like to thank all the little people that made this happen. My mother for sewing this costume for me, both my parents for their awesome DNA, and of course to the real Casanova for his inspiration." He then looked at one of the teacher's aides, a very attractive co-ed from the State University. "Oh, and of course, I want to thank you, the judges, for making such an excellent choice." Okay, Casanova." Mr. Greenberg took back the control of his microphone. "Now for our final winner, best costume for this year's Halloween party. The winner is Michelle Bowman." "I told you, you would win," Nathaniel said. "You will go with me?" She asked him again. "Of course, Michelle. I would love to." She smiled and worked her way through the clapping crowd to the stage. Mr. Greenberg handed her the trophy and 2 gift certificates. "Congratulations, Miss Bowman." After school on Halloween, Margaret, Rodrigo, Michelle, and Nathaniel all met in front of the best #1 Chinese restaurant. Billy had his 3 best friends with him, Mike, Joey, and Bruce. Bruce was not really a friend of Billy's. He was just a wannabe that Billy let hang out with them so they could mock and ridicule Bruce. Bruce was so thin that it seemed he could be easily broken over Billy's leg, like a dried twig. Mike and Joey, on the other hand, were both big guys. Future linebackers, Nathaniel guessed. They oddly both had the faces of bulldogs. They were cousins, yet mysteriously looked more like twin brothers than cousins, at least bulldogs from the same litter. Their personalities, unfortunately, were more like pit bulls than bulldogs. Oddly, even though Billy was not nearly as big as either of them, he seemed to have them both on very short leashes. They did not bite or bark unless Billy told them to. The Bruno cousins were dressed as wastelanders from the post-apocalypse Mad Max movies. Black leather, football shoulders, knee and elbow pads, and even their heads shaved into mohawks. Bruce was dressed in a wide brim hat, a long wool coat, and a wool scarf around his neck. "Who are you supposed to be?" Rodrigo asked Bruce. "Yes, you got it." Bruce answered. "I got it. Who are you?" Rodrigo asked again. "Yes." Rodrigo was getting frustrated, so Nathaniel explained, "I think he is supposed to be Doctor Who." "Doctor Who? Who's Doctor Who?" Rodrigo asked. "That's what we asked," said one of the Bruno cousins. "He's a Time Lord from a British sci-fi show," answered Nathaniel. "You like Doctor Who?" Bruce asked Nathaniel. "I am more a Transformers fan. My dad likes Star Trek, but I know who Doctor Who is." "Aren't you dressed as one of the earlier Doctor Whos?" "Yes, I am dressed as the 4th Doctor. He is my father's favorite. I like the 9th the best, but was not able to get the right clothes for him. This was actually my father's Halloween costume when he was a kid." Enough already. No one cares about British Doctor Who. If you're going to be such a geek, at least be an American geek, like Nathan. Billy slapped Bruce on the back of the head. "Don't hit him." Nathaniel stood up for Bruce. Billy was about to sick the cousins on Nathaniel, but saw that Michelle was already upset and would be even more so if he did. "Lighten up, Nathan. He loves the attention." Billy gave Bruce a headlock. "Don't you, Bruce?" "Yeah, Billy." Bruce gasped for air. "Let go of him, Billy." Michelle this time stood up for Bruce. Billy released his headlock on Bruce. "I wasn't going to really hurt him." "Yeah, Billy is my friend. He wouldn't really hurt me." Bruce snapped at Michelle. "I'm hungry." Billy led them into the restaurant. Like I said before, with friends like Billy Mania, who needs enemies? Rodrigo whispered to Nathaniel as they followed them into the restaurant. Michelle was starting to agree with Rodrigo that making friends with Billy Mania was not such a good idea. For their early dinner, their favorite Francophile Chinese waiter attended to their needs. After many wonderful traditional Chinese dishes, he surprised them with a very special dessert. For dessert I have whipped up special for your pleasure. Mousse au chocolate, the waiter announced to them as he placed mouth-watering glass cups of creamy chocolate mousse topped with dabs of fresh whipped cream before each of them. Even though they were all full from the dinner, they all seemed able to find room for the chocolate mousse. As they placed the first spoonfuls in their mouths, they all sighed in great pleasure. It was as if they had just tasted the food of the gods. "This is wonderful, Xiaobo," Michel responded. "Please call me Pierre." Xiaobo smiled, seeing that they were truly enjoying his mousse. The Bruno cousins licked their glass dessert cups clean. That was really good, they both claimed as they slammed their empty cups on the table in satisfaction. "I don't think I am going to have any room for candy tonight," Rodrigo announced as he rubbed his belly through his heavy robe. "Once we start walking, you will feel a lot better," Nathaniel assured Rodrigo. "I want more of that mousse," claimed one of the cousins. "You have to be kidding," responded Billy, who felt as if he had gained 10 pounds since their multi-course banquet. "I could go for more, too." The other cousin agreed with the first. Nathaniel was right. After they had been trick-or-treating for over an hour, Rodrigo was already dipping into his cache of candy for a chocolate bar, eating it in one bite. The Bruno cousins had already finished half their haul as they walked. "Why don't we go to your apartment building?" suggested Billy. "I understand more people have finally moved in there, and we don't need to walk so far door to door. We should get a pretty good haul there pretty quickly." "I ain't going there," one of the Brunos replied. "Me neither. Yous can go without us." The other cousin agreed. Billy stopped and faced the two walking mountains. "You're afraid?" They both stood silently, not sure how to respond. "I am not afraid, Billy." Bruce stepped forward. Billy ignored Bruce, still looking at the Bruno cousins, waiting for a reply. "You two aren't afraid of anyone." "Well, she is not just anyone," Mike answered. "Mr. Keaton ain't either." Joey added, "Yous guys go. We should head home anyways. It's only 7 o'clock and not even a school night." "Yeah, we forgot. We promised Uncle Frank we'd help him at the gas station tomorrow morning. Isn't that right, Joey?" Joey hesitated at first until he realized he should play along with Mike's sly. "Yeah, that's right. We promised Uncle Frank. Your Uncle Frank's station is self-service." They both stood there like the two dumb lunks they were. They both struggled for a reply. Both their mouths were open, as if they were going to reply, but nothing came out of either of their heads. "Just go. Wouldn't want you to have nightmares tonight or wet your beds." "We'll see you later, Billy," Mike answered as he and Joey took off. "I'm not afraid, Billy," Bruce repeated. Billy still ignored Bruce and turned to the others. "So, are we going, or are you guys afraid too?" "We live there," Nathaniel answered for himself and Michelle. "I am not afraid," Margaret answered, "as long as Nathan is with us." Margaret turned to Rodrigo for his reply. Nathaniel's dad already proved there is no her. "I am willing to go." It did not take long for them to find themselves on the road that cut through the woods between the town and the river. They were just at the point where they could not see the town anymore, and were still not close enough to see the bridge and river ahead of them. The full moon lighted their way. Even though Michelle and Nathaniel had walked this road many times, to and from school, this was the first time they walked it at night. The trees on each side of the road had a spooky feel to them. Half bare, their twisted branches reached out in all directions in gray and black silhouettes under the night sky. They could hear some movement in the woods as leaves cracked and were swept aside as creatures unseen took flight in the woods as they approached. "It is just deer, rabbits, or raccoons," Nathaniel assured the others. "Do you think there are bears in these woods?" asked Rodrigo. "Possible. Black bears," responded Margaret. "Bears have been making a comeback in the area." "Bears? Oh my. Perhaps there are lions and tigers too. Billy joked. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my. He laughed, but the others didn't. Bears are real, Billy Mania. Margaret responded. And tigers and lions aren't, he mocked her. We know tigers are not real in New England. Nathaniel defended Margaret. As for lions, I'm sure there hasn't been any mountain lions in this area for over a century. Actually, there have been some rare cases of mountain lions spotted in the state, but further north of here. Rodrigo informed them. They all suddenly heard something very big move in the woods right near them. They all stopped to listen and try to see into the dark woods to catch a glimpse of what made the noise. I'm scared. Michelle took Nathaniel's arm. Me too. Margaret took Nathaniel's other arm. Billy was bewildered that the girls were not reaching out to him for protection when he suddenly felt someone grab his arm. It was Bruce. Let go of me. Billy shook Bruce free of himself. Sorry. Bruce let go but was starting to shake in fear. You're scared? Billy questioned Bruce. No, not me. I am not scared, he replied, continuing to shake. Just a bit cold. How can you be cold with all that heavy wool on? Billy responded. It sounds like it is getting closer. Rodrigo pointed his death's sickle towards the woods. Nathaniel broke the hold of the girls on his arms and unslung his musket. It couldn't fire, but he could at least use it like a pike or club. Billy unsheathed his blunted foil, thinking he could at least poke out one of the beast's eyes if it attacked him. Even Margaret held up her broom, stick ready to beat back the wild animal, approaching them louder and louder through the darkened woods. They formed a defensive stance towards the sound of the creature of the night. Although they never saw it, the sound it was making was clearly now moving away from them back into the woods that Grandpa Miller had warned them about. It took a moment for them to all realize the danger had passed. As they did, they noticed how each of them, except for Bruce and Michelle, had without thinking took on combative stances with the props of their Halloween costumes. Well, that was exciting. Billy broke the silence, resheathing his foil. There was nothing to worry about. He looked at the girls. How was that? Asked Michelle. Well, if it were a lion or bear, we could just feed Bruce to it while we make our escape. Bruce nervously laughed. You're a coward, Billy. Nathaniel, though, could tell by looking at Billy he was not kidding. Billy Mania was more than willing to sacrifice his little friend to save his own neck. They began to continue their trek to the bridge. Michelle, do you mind if I stay at your place tonight? I really don't want to walk back this way later tonight. Margaret asked. Michelle smiled and put a reassuring arm around Margaret. You are more than welcome. Thank you, Michelle. Just in sight of the bridge, Nathaniel, who was now leading the group, stopped. What was that? What was what? Billy asked, a bit annoyed. Listen. They all became very still and listened. At first, they expected to hear another wild animal making its way towards them through the woods, but none of them heard any movement in the woods. What are we listening for? Whispered Rodrigo. Music. Nathaniel answered. Music? Asked Michelle. Nathaniel put his finger to his mouth to signal that they should not talk. They all obeyed, even Billy, and listened carefully. Their eyes all widened as they too could hear in the distance deep in the woods what sounded like a pipe organ. It's him. Margaret said what they had all been thinking when they heard the sound. But it's not the 7th of November. This time even Billy was clearly struck with fear. I think we should get across the bridge now. I agree. Rodrigo responded. The small group of trick-or-treaters began to run for the bridge. The organ music, still faint, seemed to be getting louder, especially in their heads. They could see the bridge ahead of them. As they got closer and closer to the bridge, the sound of the river began to drown out the sound of the pipe music from the woods. Not taking any chances, they dashed across the bridge and away from the woods. They could see a light on at the Millers, so Nathaniel and Michelle led the group there to take refuge. Trying to catch their breaths, they finally found themselves on Miller's front porch. Nathaniel, still breathing heavily, knocked 3 times, paused, and then knocked twice. Grandpa Miller answered the door. The children gave a half-hearted trick or treat. "Can we come in, Mr. Miller?" Nathaniel asked. "Of course. Come right in. Get out of the cold. You look like the trees were after you." He opened the door wider, letting in the trick-or-treaters. They entered the living room, noticing all the lights were on. There was no sign of Nana Miller. "Is Nana asleep?" asked Michelle. "Oh no, it's Halloween. She's not here." Grandpa Miller responded, sitting in his chair. "Where is she?" Nathaniel asked, "Is she okay?" "Oh, she's fine. Just ever since the accident, she is never home on Halloween. I don't really understand why, and she never tells me where she went. So, is just me here." He then whispered to them, "I can have as much pie as I want when she is not here." He smiled. Remembering his manners, he asked them in a normal tone, "Do you want some pie?"